Greetings. I will begin by expressing my sheer delight to find myself here, excited and internally compelled to share about my journey, my experiences, and my learning. This very endeavor, this humble endeavors of ours, is dedicated to my Guru, Pandit Harvinder Sharma, whose blessing, whose teaching has allowed me this chance to experience the joy of sharing. Let's dive into the fact that as an artist, as a musician, I might digress from the topic. I have been often told that I become very poetic and scientific at the same time, but I believe that that will only serve our efforts here. Throughout my journey, what has really excited me is to discover at various milestones that all things of feelings, be it art as such, music, poetry, painting, sculpture, they are essentially the same. Under a few peels and under a few fields, they become one. And that has allowed me a grander and more clearer perspective of what it is to be an artist. This interdisciplinary spirit is one of the great features of this universe, where eventually everything is one. By allowing ourselves an admittance into the world where everything melts down and becomes one, allows us to understand our art and ourselves deeper. With the same knowing, I always wondered, and this kept a consistent thought of me, that if somebody knows an instrument or a form of music which has all the intricacies which are shared throughout all classical cultures and musical traditions of the world, how much would it take, or what is the most easiest and most instant way of realizing or doing Indian music on your instrument? What is one thing or few very basic things that, if becomes part of your perspective, you can play your same notes in a sense that they will express something of Indian classical music? The objective here is definitely not that by the end of this session you will be in a position to begin a career as an Indian classical musician and perform and tour, but it is essentially to bring you to a position where your excitement and your passion for these art forms could be stirred. You be in a position where you can follow your curiosities and your passions more deeply, and mostly to understand or to deepen the understanding of something that you already do. If you play a Western instrument, even more, because now you have a comparison and you have a special, different or more enhanced view of the same, because you have more perspectives and directions to it. Well, the musical aspect of today's session will cover a rag and how will you play that rag. What essentially is a rag? Rag is a very broad term, but now generally speaking, if you're an Indian classical musician and if you deal with the melodic side of the music, not the percussion, not the drums, but let's say, for example, sitar, violin, cello, all these instruments of your culture which are more so apt of playing pitches aligned higher and lower in time, melody, or even harmony, just like sitar, just like sarod, just like santoor, just like bansuri, which is a flute, you can play a rag. Any Indian classical musician who plays these melodic instruments, majority of the times they are actually expressing themselves in rag. Rag is an emotional landscape which is made up of sonic material, and it's very malleable. It's a landscape which is made up of Play-Doh, like a Lego word, and it's evolving and it's always changing. That's a rag. It's not a defined composition and it does not have a very set structure. It has some rules which are musical and it has some rules which are more so emotional. It has some rules which deals with time, and it has some guidance of how you are going to put them all together and make it something that is essentially very personal and your own. Rag has some key elements. Number one thing that a rag has are notes, or जिनको हम कहते हैं सुर. The one which we call notes is also called swar. Swar means sound or a musical sound, just like your tones. The 12-tone scale on a piano, which is very close to our 12 tones we have. The only difference is that these notes are not now mathematically tuned and are very constant, but they are dynamic. In the world of rag, notes are dynamic. They always change. They go a little bit sharper or a little bit flatter. Some rags have prescribed microtonal enhancements to these notes, that if you're doing this note, you have to go maybe a little bit sharper and then fall back to the real position of that note. So notes are essential part of the rag, most important. How are notes looked at is that what are the notes that we used in the ascending, which one are omitted, and which are the notes which we used in descending. Is it a straight way up like 1, 2, 3, 4, or is there an order or a little bit of a pattern to the ascending where you go from first to the third and then maybe second and then maybe fourth and then, so there can be all kinds of patterns which you have to adhere to when you are presenting a rag. If it all seems a little bit complicated, it's only because we are talking about music, which is generally not the best way of approaching music. Soon you will realize that when we start playing, it's not as complicated because you already play. And the understanding of rag is essentially not really confined to these words. It is to get to a place where it just starts happening through you without the necessity of the understanding. So understanding is a very shallow and very fleeting part of this whole journey. So even if we rely upon it, it does not take us too far. Well, that being said, let us go back to what a rag is. So rag generally has these aro and avro. Aro means the way, the ascent, and avro means the descent in the scale. It can have somewhere from 5 to maybe 12 notes. That does not really mean that every time you go up there are that many notes. Some notes can be omitted, some notes can reoccur, some notes can occur in their both forms. Maybe a natural and a flatter form, maybe a natural and a sharper form. Now, some notes in a rag exerts themselves more than others. Some notes are more prominent. So you have to stay on that note or use that note more. These notes demand more importance. Generally, there are two notes in a rag which are like that. They are called vadi and samvadi. It usually is that vadi, one of the important notes, it's situated in the lower tetrachord or the octave, or one is in the higher. So they have their governance. So if you're looking for a note to go to in that area, you already know that this is an important note. And if I have to end a phrase or if I have to really emphasize on a note, we have something in this area and we have something in that area as well. To make it simpler, let me tell you that this rag which we are going to do, with the rag that's going to come, that is practically will be played, is a Sampurna, which means complete 8 notes and 8 notes. That is actually 7 notes and 7 notes. And this rag is one of the most simplest and basic rags. So far you must have understood that rag has some notes. Even if you have followed this much, they are arranged in going up and they are then coming down. If you only follow that much, that's wonderful. If you also followed that there are some notes which are more important and there are some which are not as important. Some are there for you to stay and some are there just to bridge those notes. Some are there to really call it your home for a little while, and some are just transitory notes. If you have followed that, wonderful, that's great. Now, the next thing that is important in a rag, which is actually not as much of a musical thing or a technical scientific thing, which makes it all so much more special. Right up till now, we have talked about what makes a rag in musical sense. means the frequencies, the sounds, the notes, the important note, the second most important note. But what is also important in Indian classical music is that we always collaborate with nature, with nature. So one of the key features of a rag, or while looking at a rag, or while really expressing the rag in its most beautiful way, is to be careful that what is the most suitable time for this rag. What is the timing that actually allows this rag to really blossom and spring flowers? What's the spring for this rag? Does not have to be the spring for every spring. Every season has something that just expresses itself as a beautiful expression of life. Similarly, ragas are thought of as these musical things which comes to life at different times of the day and also at different times of the year, at different seasons. We are collaborating with nature. If we imagine if we play a rag beautifully, but we play it at a wrong time, something is still missing. Something that is the input of the surrounding. That is which actually makes it belong. So that is an important feature of rag. Samay, time. The rag we are going to do today is called Rag Yaman. Now it's revealed to you. It's called Rag Yaman. Yaman is this beautiful, gentle, very, very compassionate expression of evening time. Evening when day and night, they both meet each other and they both start blending into each other. That moment, that union, that surrender, or that end and the beginning, that is the place of Yaman. This rag, if played at that time, it just becomes so much whole, so much complete. So far we have looked at the scale or the notes of the rag, and then we are also talking about the emotional aspect of the rag. Simply by deciding what is the time of the rag, or understanding that, you really understand the passion and the feeling behind the rag. If there's an afternoon rag, usually people rest in the afternoon. We are talking about the time when ragas were mostly made to express a very agrarian society. So farmers would usually be resting. So in the afternoon we have more so like rags which are very relaxing. In the morning, early morning are the hours of devotion, the sun rising. Therefore, these ragas have very, very devotional, intense mood. Very intense devotional mood. Now, coming back to Yaman, before I say anything about Yaman, I would like to assure this, that this entire theory and this entire what is being talked about, and if you follow that and if you understand that, you have understood the entire theory around the rag, which is therefore made into practical. Indian classical music does not have too much theory. I have made it simple, clear, as far as I can do, so that in these few minutes you understand everything that's going to contribute to your playing. There can be lots of history, there can be lots of things, but they're not applicable to the playing. So if you are following me and if you're listening to this and if that makes sense, you're getting it. Now, a rag is usually presented in a format or a structure which is quite loose, except for there are movements which have evolved over time. And at different times in history, these structures were different. But now we have a more so very comprehensive way of presenting or playing a rag, of letting the rag have a journey. And now these movements are important if you understand that. We cannot learn all the movements and everything as we do this today when we will go to playing. But I'm just going to give you an overview of these. There are essentially few movements. There are generally 4 or 5 movements First one is called alap. Alap is the first movement. Imagine I pick up my sitar and I am in mood of playing Yaman. So the first thing that I would play is alap. Here I would like to assure you of the fact that everything we are talking right now and everything that we will talk in next few minutes is almost the entire theory that actually has a practical aspect to Indian classical music. Indian classical music is not a very theory based music. It mostly is a practical based music. But there can be lots of history, there can be lots of viewpoints, there can be lots of different definitions or expansions on these definitions. But if you have followed so much, you have covered all the practical theory of this art form. I've tried to make it simple and easier in my own understanding and with my own humble knowledge. But my intention is to make it very easy that if somebody who knows music a little bit now or maybe 1,000 years from now understands a lot about Indian classical music through this video. There's some movements and features of presenting a rag. The rag has evolved over time as different expressions, different structures, different ways, but now it has a very comprehensive way of playing or presenting a rag, which is generally these 4 movements. Imagine if I have to play a rag Yaman on my sitar. The first thing I would play then is called alap. Alap is this very slow, rhythmless, timeless movement of one note into another. You take one very basic note of rag. For example, if you're playing rag Yaman, that being tonic, if I just take this note, sa, sa, ni, and I sustain this note for long enough and then go back to sa, sa, ni. So this gentle flow, this something which is yet has no bone, no skeleton of itself. It's like how caterpillar just is this fluid right now before it becomes a butterfly. It has its presence. It has everything. It's pregnant with all the expression that's going to come forth, but it's taking its time to become that. It's letting nature do it to it everything it needs to experience before it becomes a more structured, before it gets a momentum of itself, before it has a movement of itself. Alap is just this slow development of this mood. As I said initially, that rag is this emotional landscape of sonic material. It's like this painting, and painter is just putting these shades together, which sets the canvas properly for a particular mood. Alap generally happens in lower octave, middle octave, higher. It is just a slow development of that intensity as well. Imagine you have just 2 or 3 notes to begin, 1 note, 2 note, and it evolves after another note and something happens. You never know what's going to happen because it's like you take one thing and that goes this way. And now you know that these 2 things can become this as well and this as well. But when you have 3 things, you have more probability of what can happen. For example, if you have a chord, 2-digit chord, if you say they're 2-digit chord, you can do 99 different combinations of 99 different numbers. But if you have 3 different notes, 4 different chords, this probability increases. So it's just infinite ways to do it. So if somebody played alap and you tell them to play it again, it's impossible to play the entire thing same at all. I would say it's literally impossible to even play first few minutes of it the same way. Now, that is not necessary that every time you have to play alap or every time you have to play a rag, you have to follow these movements. But this is a meditative journey, if you understand. So when you're in this place of meditation where sound or music is your way to your freedom, to your going beyond your mind, you have to treat it like this. That first you have to just ground yourself. So also, going back to alap, if that is to be treated as a meditation, I hold my sitar and I go deep into these notes, one note, and I'm listening to this, which is the real tonic of this sa, slightly higher, slightly lower, which one, or ni. That's just meditating, just that's focusing on that. And that is also creating that vigor in the movement. So then there can be next movement. Next movement after alap is called jod. Alap, the word means conversation generally, or declaration more so. So you are standing on a pulpit and you say, this is the rag. You start with one note, two note, and it's a secret until all the notes appear. But you're declaring it. This note, this note, this note, this note. And every note is invited to this sonic world you are created with all the grace and all the respect. That's alap. Jod generally means, two, a pair. Here a pulse is introduced. A duple meter is introduced. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Not accompanied by a real sound, creating these events of rhythm in the time, but in your mind, in your being. The two, everything is two. The creation is two. Creation is two. There's the duality is the creation. So alap was when there was nothing, there was just emptiness and a flow of this pregnant energy. But when there's two, there's this creation, existence. There's something which is different from this and different from this. There's a time. Jod represents that. And you move in the notes with that in mind. Still improvisation. Ni re ga 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 re ga re ni da ni ma ga re sa re sa ni da re ga sa. Sometimes you can sustain something longer and you're very free as long as you understand the flow of the rag. Jod. Jod also implies that now there's a little bit skeleton, there's a structure. There's now something has started moving. So where does the jod go? It just increases in intensity. And it just leaps into this place where it says, now I'm ready for a very human expression. It goes into a composition. After jod, the third movement of presenting a rag is called gat, if you're doing it in an instrumental form. So gat, G-A-T, gat, that generally means an instrumental composition. But I will remind you that Indian classical music is mostly improvised. So here, except for two lines of the composition, which serves as an anchor of going away and then finding your way back to the home, or also syncing with now introduced rhythmic aspect of the music as well. That's why there are these two lines which serves as a composition, and if you have a rhythmic accompaniment, if you are familiar with tabla or pakhavaj, they actually accompany the gat, that composition. So to really have a conversation, there's this interface between both improvisations on both sides, melodic improvisation, rhythmic improvisation, and where they come and meet is called gat. There are lots of things which tal entails lots of details, and there's a different topic altogether. But generally, there's a rhythmic cycle which has number of beats, and there's some louder, some softer, which gives it a distinct pattern of sound and events and time. So rhythmic cycles like teen tal, a 16-beat cycle, are more often heard in improvising or playing Indian classical music, which we will be also touching on. Teen tal is 16-beat cycle. It's just a duple meter which is enhanced, or which is expanded into 4, and 4 is expanded into 6. So these 4 have different qualities. First 4 are more emphasized, then there's a weaker, then there's a little bit drop in the energy or intensity, not in the speed, not in the movement, but just the sound of it, and then it goes back into that. If I may recite it for you, Dha din din da din da, dha din da, da din da. 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 1. So this is 16 beat cycle. Dha din da dha, there are syllables, language of tabla as well, an accompanying drum. They have their own language. So these are the sounds that are produced on those drums. They have names. So when we are talking, for the convenience of talking, since there's not much written down material, we can only say that, okay, play dha din da, dha din da, dha din da, dha din da. And then there's more intricate and complex patterns around these sounds. So there's now the third part, which is gat. And that is what we are going to learn today specifically. And then it goes into the jhala. Jhala is a rhythmic pattern which just creates this very fast trance-like state, and it repeats. I will demonstrate that, but we will mostly emphasize on gat today because that's where everybody starts learning, and that is actually an amalgam of all these features which we have talked about. I have, to make it easier, tuned my instrument to C, which is an easier scale. Usually sitars are tuned to C sharp or D. This is a little lower. So if you find the sitar sounding unique and different and special, so thanks to the choice of scale that I did for my sitar. Little bit about sitar as we are doing this. Sitar has one main string that's played more than others. Okay, so I'm not really going into the strings a lot. So this is the main string. This is the tonic note, this fret here, since I'm talking to instrumentalists and musicians. This is the tonic note, this fret is the tonic note, this is the do, the sa. So let's call this C because it is C, then this is D, E. Oh, that note. What happened? Yes, Rag Yaman has a different set of notes used than natural scale. What's the difference? The fourth is sharper. The fourth is higher. We never use a natural fourth in here. C, D, E, F sharp, G, E, D, C. Rest are just natural notes. So Rag Yaman, the very peculiar characteristic of this rag is that you always use, when it's the time to use a fourth, is a sharper version of that fourth. Now, another distinct quality of this rag is that in ascending, we tend to omit the first and the fifth. We don't use first and the fifth as we go up. And anytime we are using a pattern made around these notes, and if there's one step up, one step down, because it's just, don't assume that rag is just going up and rag is coming down and not using patterns and all that. No, there will be lots of patterns. So you have to be mindful that if you have moved from one note to another, let's pretend if you're going to fourth towards the sixth, you have omitted the fifth in that. So that makes rag yaman. For example, to make it easier, we always start from one note before the tonic because we are not going to play the tonic. So it will sound too abrupt if we start from the second. So we start from the one note below. So this is a lower B. B, D, E, F sharp, A, D. Of course, last note to give it a sense of completion, we will use the C there, the tonic note there. So I will take position as we are moving into the practical part of this class. I would thank you and congratulate you that you were able to pay attention and sit so far. Thank you. So sitar again. I will keep sharing lots of facts about sitar and about music around our practical aspect of this. When you strum the strings, it just creates a very strong tonic chord for you. So because tonic note is the home and its presence actually decide the whole nature of the rag. Otherwise we will be playing a scale which will present different tonics at different times just because of the grouping of the notes. So right now this is a strum and this always highlights this note. So now we are going to do the ascending of Rag Yaman. Ascending of Rag Yaman will be B, E, E, F sharp, E, E, C, C, D, A, G, F sharp, E, B, C. So you notice that in the descending there were all the tones with a sharp F, with a sharp fourth. You understand? C, D, E, F sharp, A, B, C, C, D, A, G, F sharp, E, B, C. That's the ascending and descending. And also the kind of notes that we use. Now that's clear. In Yaman we have this kind of ascending and descending, and we have a sharp fourth always. Next important thing that we actually talked earlier was the important notes. As I said, every rag has a pair of important notes. They are called Vadi and Samvadi, the most harmonic and the second most harmonic note. So what does that mean? That means in Yaman there must be a note in this part, like the first four notes, and there will be another note in the last four notes, which is of great imperative. Now, in Yaman, if you have good ears, you can tell this is the third note. This is the Vadi note, the most important note, E, if you are in the scale of C. And 5 notes apart, on the higher side of the octave, we have B, or the 7th note, as the second most important note. So these notes are to be given great regard when you're creating something, improvising on it. For example, that second note can also be in the lower octave. So it does not mean that you're limited in one octave, but the same rule applies if you are doing it here. Since B is our important note, A, C, B, F, A, C, B, B, A, B, A, C, B, A, B, F, B, C, B, F, A, C, B. Now, the fourth major aspect, which we have already elaborated a lot on, is the timing of this rag, which tells you all about the emotional aspect of this rag, is that Yaman is an evening time rag. It's very calm, tranquil. How do you express that? In alap. So remember I told you about alap, but one thing which you must have noticed that I am pulling the string to move between the notes. And that is the most beautiful thing about Indian classical music, that here we don't think of notes as these steps, but it's like how a river flows. Anywhere you have to go from one to another note, the best way is to take everything along, is to bring the fragrance of that note to the next note. And that those are the shades that we really enjoy. But it does not mean that we don't go staccato. We do. But when we are really expressing from the depth of our heart, we find it more suitable to do it in the previous way. For that, singing becomes one of the guides. How you would sing. De re na. E na. De. So this kind of understanding and this inspiration, and then your capacity and your ability to play those sounds, that's a lifetime of journey. That was just a demonstration. What I would like you to play today is just this one composition, which is in 16 beats. Starts from the first beat, and it's a very simple composition. It starts from the third note, and it has lots of that, and it has 4 lines. I remember I told you 2 lines, but a complete composition has a chorus too. And this composition is usually played in a medium speed, or you can do it even faster. The composition is like this. The higher the antara, the chorus. So you see, we repeat lines sometimes, maybe 2 times, to just let it truly come to its absolute impact and beauty. I will tell you the notes. Firstly, ga ga re ga ma pa ma ga re sa sa ni re ga re ga ma pa ma ga re sa sa ni. Oh, tough. Not the language you know. Let's slow down. E, E, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, E, D, B, D, E. I'm not too fluent in these sounds, but trying to help you as much as I can. E, E, D, E, G, E, E, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, E, D, C, D, D, E. I will slow down for you further. E, E, D, E, F sharp, G, F, E, D, E, D, C, C, D, D, E, D, E. So you can also actually play one note, but there's sometimes a little bit of a rhythmic aspect to it as well. For example, or so there's a little groove that you can create. First step is to just find the notes. You must have noticed there's a little bit of some kind of syncopation towards the end of it. So there's a rhythmic syncopation. So syncopation. So there's a da 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 da. Let's assume that you are a violin player. You play violin, so you're going to play long notes. That is most suitable for your instrument. So you will go E, D, E, F, G, F, E, D, C, D, D, E. Now if you actually do more grooves with your bow, then you go. If you're actually playing, maybe let's say you play piano, then these kind of rhythmic movements are easier for you and will actually make more sense for your instrument. The second line. Again a 16-beat line which connects to this line beautifully. Now this will also give you an idea that usually the first line is in the middle octave of the composition, whichever is your instrument's main key expressive octave, which is similar to human voice, that's usually the middle octave. And then the next line usually goes towards the lower octave, which is, if you want to know the term, is called sanchari. The first line is called mukhra. These both lines together, they are called sthai, but you don't have to remember these terms. They're just for theory. Second line. Ni, ni, da, ma, ma, da, ni, re. Ni, ni, da, ma, ma, da, ni, re. In the alphabets, B, B, A, B, A, F, F, A, B, B, D, D, B, B, A, B, A, F sharp, F sharp, F, F, A, B, B, D, D. First line. I hope you are coming along so far. Now, as you can tell, even if we increase the speed, even I'm not doing these very, very fine pullings and the glidings, there's a little bit more distortion as well. But rag still expresses the feeling, the same feeling. It still is about peace, it still is about that evening, that tranquility, that birds returning home, that sun setting, that sky is blushing. All those feelings are still there. So even if you play very... it does not mean that the feeling changes much. So that's the power of a rag. It's just one constant emotion that you have to drown in for hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. And of course, you can just repeat one line, 2 line, that's just as beautiful. Or you can just let the rag guide you and you go and whatever the rag tells you. Now doing the antara, the second part of the composition, which is... Now, as you can see, we covered the middle octave in the first line, lower octave in the second line, and now we are going to the higher octave. That's why there's the next part of the composition. Antara is usually played where the intensity builds up, builds up, builds up. So that's the point. It's usually, we improvise on the first line a little bit, we improvise on the second line a little bit, then we again improvise. Imagine we have been doing that for almost 10, 15, 20 minutes. And now there's this vigor and this energy, and it wants to soar and fly. So then it shoots up. It just shoots up. So this is your antara. Ga ga ma ma da da ni sa ni da pa. E F sharp A B C higher C B A B G. E F sharp, F sharp, G, A, B, B, C, B, A, B, G. And the second line of the antara, even higher, E, D, E, C, B, A, B, G, E, D, E, C, E, B, A, A. The second line of the antara is spanning over 2 cycles of the intal, which is also a way of doing it. If you want to do go a little bit advanced, ga ga ma ma da da ni ni sa ni da pa ga re sa ni da pa ga re ga ma ga re sa E D C B A G E D E F E D C ga ga re ga ma pa ma ga re. Now, how do you improvise on that? Now the last movement, as I was saying, the jhala. Jhala is this rhythmic pattern, of course 16-beat cycle, where you use more than just one string to create a very definitive musical expression, which is you are using first string and then a sharper sounding string which is called chikari to create a rhythmic wave after wave, but set to time. So jhala is just this joyful, absolute final blooming, like unfurling of everything that this raga is about. Jhala usually appears to be a very fast, very difficult movement, but it's one of the easiest, because once you get that movement and once you have the pattern in your mind and you know the movement of the notes in the rag, then jhala is the absolute joy of playing sitar. Absolute joy, which is in Western instruments, it's a little bit of a challenge, because you don't have these drum strings. You don't have these strings, so you just have strings which are always intonated. So how would you play jhala in Western instruments? Let's again assume that mostly, if you're a violin player or if you're a piano player, and so you will treat your sa, or the keynote of the scale, if it's C, as this string. And then you will play that note more, and then you will make patterns around that. For example, if you just have this note, so how would your jhala sound like? So you are playing this note as for the sake of the pattern. So you can discover, invent your own methods to see how your instrument would express something which is otherwise thought very typical of some other instruments. So for example, if your instrument does not allow bending, like piano does not allow bending, so how will you play expressions like you will use the dynamics of your instrument. For guitar, maybe instead of guitar does not allow, or you do not enjoy that much flexibility of the strings to play that long of a bend, but you can always slide. Piano. So even if you make a cloud of sound, it's something on the same level of the same expression, that there's something that's very flexible, something which is not really definite but free, just like this bend is, but maybe a cloud of sound. So there's absolute freedom in how you want to express something, and you can come up with your own methods and ways of doing that, as I've given you. The idea behind this whole idea behind sharing this tradition of music is not to take somebody away from their tradition or their whatever their discipline is, but within their discipline they will see that there is so much scope of just doing all these things. So with that idea, this was just a very basic, but within the basic, an attempt to share the essence of this form of music. I would encourage you all to go deeper if you like this. I would encourage you all to, in your own self, pretend that you know and you're free to experience this, at least for your own self, and just take on the character of an Indian classical musician or something to do with this music, and play this music and see what happens. If you can feel the spirit behind this music, techniques and theoretical aspect just follows itself. And I think that's the gist behind any artistic endeavor as well. So I would find it in itself a greater blessing that whatever I said and whatever I have done, that has just been experienced or witnessed by some musicians, some musical souls, and what becomes of it or doesn't become of it is not really, as you can see, this music is just free and it just becomes of it, something of itself. So that's not really my concern. I really want to express my gratitude for being part of this and being actually a more important part of this, because what I am doing and what I am saying is essentially a digital expression or the imprint of that, which is not real, but that side is more real, which is you right now. So thank you very much. Look how quiet the ocean is. Frozen. It's like glass. It's like this opportunity for the sky to look into this vast mirror. Yaman. This is Yaman, this rag. You're living this rag, witnessing the most perfect Yaman. This serenity, this tranquility, this day receding and night taking over. These birds, this sunset, this timelessness to this moment. This peace which is only in a devotee who has found its love. It enters you too. Just enters you from everywhere. Stillness. Completeness. Wholeness. Silence. That's Yaman. Witness Rag Yaman, my most beloved of all. Grateful.